Another just really seismic question. We haven't talked about your kicker or punter yet at all. Do you have an idea who will start in those spots and maybe kick returner or punt returner?
Yeah, we allowed both of those guys to have competitions, at kicker and at punter. And so, both guys, both incumbents have done a great job in camp. So, we still have to go through this week of practice, but, our expectation is that Jaden and Joey will handle the kicking.
A return game, anything?
Not yet.
Coach, it's been a while since you named Julian the starter. How's his confidence level? What's your expectations for him on Saturday, and what's your message to him?
Well, the message is just win. Find a way to win. I think when you start setting expectations, you can get yourself out of whack. We're going to take it one play at a time. He's got a good group of guys around him. He's got a good defense. He's got good special teams, a good offensive line, good skill guys. He needs to lean into those players and find a way to win the game. We'll try to get him into a rhythm and then go from there. And that's really it. It's a start. It's the first game, and we're excited for him. You're seeing him every day get more and more confident, more and more comfortable in what we're trying to do. But we got to get out in the field and play, and it's about time.
Dan Hope, left Warriors.
Right tackle, have you guys made a decision yet on whether Phillip or Ethan will be that guy?
I think we're going to kind of leave that towards the end of the week, and we'll, let the week play out, let these guys compete. Certainly Phil will play a lot. Whether we rotate or not, we'll decide. But he's had a really good preseason, and he's ready to play.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, in talking to Buckeye fans over the course of really the whole offseason, they recognize the importance of this game while also understanding the 12-team playoff, and both teams are still alive. You guys didn't have a non-conference game like this last year, so what are the conversations you guys have in the building about, hey, we want to win this, but also it doesn't end your season or put it in jeopardy if you don't? How do you handle that within the program?
Well, first off, I think it's great for college football playing a game like this opening weekend. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Sark, for his coaching staff, for the players. And we're excited to play these guys. It's rare that you would, kind of play someone like this towards the end of the season and start the regular season with them. But here we are. And I think it's going to give us a great barometer coming out of the first game. But for us, as we talked about before, the preparation starts really early because you got to be on point, and we got to play a clean game. That's very, very important. And so, as you get closer and closer to the game, you just do everything you can to prepare the guys. I think when you look at our season, which is unique this year, one of your goals should be to win the opener. I mean, that's clear. We did that when we had Big Ten games to open the season, win the opener, and then you kind of go from there, which allows us an opportunity to focus on one game at a time. And then, once this game's over, we'll figure out what we did well, what we need to improve on. The issues will be there. They'll surface, and then we address them. So, it's an exciting time of year because now we get on the field and figure out where we're at, figure out where the guys are at, and go from there. But it's important that we play clean in game one.
Ryan, people talk about the script that Steve Sarkisian uses to start the game. What kind of problem or roadblock does a Matt Patricia, being new, pose to the building of a script?
I don't know. Steve's a great play caller, always has been, and I'm sure he has his method for doing that. Usually, most guys who are, scripting games are trying to get the quarterback into a rhythm. So I'm sure they're going to want to do that with Arch, and then he's probably trying to identify what he's got out there, and different formations, different groupings, trying to ID what is going on in the field. And so it's usually a combination of those things. You want to move the ball, but you also want to get down the field and you want to score, and then also identify what's going on the field. What are you seeing? And I'm sure that'll be his plan. His scripts are very well known for having a lot of success. So we got to do a great job of recognizing what they're trying to do and get them on the ground.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
Adjusting, obviously, always a big part of football, but with this unique situation of playing a really good team right out of the gate, do you feel like that will play a significant role in this game?
Yeah. As always, the first half is, you can make adjustments now pretty quickly on the sideline with the tablets, but halftime is really where a lot of the adjustments get made. We got to get out there and play clean and get a feel for what we got, and then I always say to the guys, you know, at halftime, we're either tied, winning, or losing, and then we have to come out and play well in the second half. So, yeah, how quick we can identify that. I think what you're getting at is you got to have the contingency plans in place for what you may see. You know, just because they've shown it in the past doesn't mean that that's what they're necessarily going to do. So we have to be ready for everything. And they're a great coaching staff, so they definitely will have their wrinkles.
Steven Means, Cleveland.com.
Two-part here. Do you remember the first game of your career that you called plays? And then on top of that, when you were doing that for the first time, how much of an influence were like guys like Chip Kelly and guys that you had been around on where you were as a play caller then versus how you kind of tried to develop your own style of how you wanted to run an offense?
I don't actually remember the first game that I called. I remember the first year I was at Temple, and you know, you learn every time you come out of a game. You learn more and more about that. But one thing that you know, I feel strongly about is that, you know, the more organized you are, the easier it is to call. And when I mean organized, the staff's organized, the practice is organized, the game plan's organized, how we're calling plays is organized. So everybody knows exactly what's going to be done ahead of time. You know, I think one of the things that, you know, probably, you know, gets lost is the fact, like, you don't just go out there and just randomly call plays. You know, all of these situations have been thought out very, very well. And now, you know, the way that we're playing football, where we get about 10 possessions a game, situations are a higher percentage of the game. So it allows you to be more specific and more efficient in your play calling.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
You and Sark are considered two of the guys, like, if you give them a month to prepare, you know, they'll have something for you. Now you give each of you guys 7.5 months to prepare. How do you make sure that you don't overanalyze what you want to accomplish and have like a set goal of like, this is what we want to do on offense in this game?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, because you can do that. You can find yourself going, you know, whole, part, whole many times during this process. You know, I feel like during that run at the end, you know, those 10 days was like a kind of a nice sweet spot for us. But we also had a body of work. This is a new group of guys. So just because it's a good play doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work, because, you know, we have guys who are different than last year, just like they do. You know, they have to replace people. So what you're trying to do is find something that you perceive is going to be a successful play against what you're going to see, but also that your guys can execute. And so that's where you go back and forth. And then, like we said, you know, you may have to adjust along the way and making sure you have enough, because in game one, there's a lot of unknowns. So that's the balance that we try to find. But ultimately, it's the coach's job to make sure these guys can play fast, because that's it. You know, we do have a fast team, they have a fast team, but, you know, how well you coach them, how well you prepare them will allow them to play faster. And that's the key as a coach. We can't bog them down.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
It was Villanova, and you guys won 41-10.
Now I remember, thank you.
Yeah, you guys had a tough schedule that year looking at it, right after that one, right? I mean, Maryland and Penn State. You guys scored a lot of points, though. 27 points the next week against Maryland. Okay, that's not my question. Who's the top backup defensive tackle? If you guys had a game today, who'd be the top backup D tackle?
I wouldn't say one guy, because we're going to roll those guys pretty good. I feel like we've developed some depth there, and I feel like we're going to, you know, feel good about putting different guys in the game. So, you know, between Edric and K-Mac and Will, you know, Taiwan Malone, you know, even Jarquez, you're going to see guys kind of mix in and out of there. So the good news is we have depth there, and, you know, I feel like we made progress at that position. So, you know, now they got to go play, and we got to go put it on the field against a really good front.
Real quick, Larry brought up Jarquez as well. Has that been kind of a pleasant surprise? I know he was here in the spring, but as a true freshman, just being in the mix.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got twitch, and, you know, I think, again, whether it's in game one or down the road, these guys are going to help us. I think that's the other thing too. It's like, as you go into game one, you have a certain mindset, but then it's also a long season, and so some of these guys that are definitely going to make an impact for us this year may or may not play in game one. Don't know, because, you know, we can't be in a game like this game and just, you know, be trying to figure out what we're going to get for type of play and performance, you know. So, you know, we'll usually err on the guys that have played before, but you'll see some fresh faces in there as well.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, play calling seems to be the theme, so we'll stay on that topic. It's a group effort, but do you have veto power?
Yes.
And do you remember when you were play caller, whether it was Irvin or whoever it may have been, like said, no, we're not doing that? I mean, how do you take that? Like, is it like, okay, you know, it's his show, or just your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I always say that if they ever recorded what is said on the headsets, that you can make a lot of money, because, yeah, and back then too, Coach Meyer and I used to go at it. But I think the thing that I really respected about Coach and he respected about me was, he would challenge me, and then I would go right back at him because I felt strong about what we did, And as long as you were strong about it, then he respected that. Now you better be right. Well, it's the same thing now. And I do that the same thing is like I challenge guys. I challenge them about their players. I challenge them about scheme. I challenge them about their technique. And if guys don't feel really confident coming back at you saying, no, we're going to do this, because that's what you want as a coach. You call a play and you're like, this play's not going to work, and they all come back and, yeah, it is. Well, okay, good. Well, then let's see. And that's kind of what you're looking for. But as the head coach, you constantly have to challenge these guys. And then you also find out what they like, what they feel confident in their players in. So, yeah, it's a lot of back and forth. But most of that conversation happens during the week when we're on the board, on the film, putting the game plan together. Because, we only have a certain amount of calls. Let's just call it on 3rd and 1. So, he's picking one of 3, and we've all said that these are good. And I think that's a part of the offensive staff, too. And same thing on defense is that if we've all put it on the board, we feel good about it, we've made a big check mark, then when it's called in the game, we all got to get behind it. And it's the same thing on defense. And if we don't like it, take it out.
Real quick, what's the personality of this team? Coaches love to talk every year. It's a little different. I know we're early in the process, but going into this game, we're not talking young and inexperienced because that's what we always talk about. Yeah. But is there a personality you're starting to see?
Yeah, and I don't think it always shows until you get on the field and actually play games. But it's competitive. It's edgy. They like competing. They enjoy being with each other. I think now it's just a lot of these guys got to get on the field and play, and then we'll figure out what it is from there. When we have success, when we have setbacks, those types of things as we work through that. But a lot of leadership has risen here, and that's a good thing. A lot of young guys are figuring it out. Some guys still don't know what they don't know. I say it's like raising a son or having children. You bring them along, you show them, you see the growth, but ultimately they have to go live their life. Well, it's the same thing here. They got to go play the game now, and we're ready to go play. Well, I mean, we can't wait to get on this field and get the season started.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, and can you lean on? I know every quarterback you have is different, right? And kind of even going back to your history, but can you lean on previous experiences with first-year quarterbacks that can help you? Know kind of how to prepare Julian or how to call a game like this?
Yeah, I think so. I think you take what you see in practice and you try to project the best you can, and that's the thing about first games is you make a lot of assumptions. You're assuming it's going to look a certain way in the game. Some certain assumptions are going to be right, other assumptions are going to be wrong. That's the job of coaching, and it's that experience of seeing it and learning But then you also try not to label because you see somebody say, well, he's like him. Well, not really. He may have some characteristics like that player, but he's his own player. So there's this, again, balance of trying to figure out, is this what you can predict and project's going to happen, or are these their own set of guys that are going to have their own experience? And so that just comes down with experience. You got to trust your coaching and make sure that their minds are in the right spot and focused on what really matters. We know that this week it's going to come down to avoiding distractions. There'll be a lot of distractions this week. It always happens. It's very, very predictable. And so we have to make sure that we're avoiding distractions better than Texas.
Far right, Adam King, WBNS.
How much do you balance out wanting to go out there and play the same kind of game plan you did towards the end of last year, but also knowing it's week one, it's going to be clunky at times. You're trying to get just play calls in at the same time. How do you balance that knowing that you're also playing Texas?
Yeah, well, because when you are late in the season in your game 12 or 13, it's just very, very different. I mean, you've played games, you've worked through things, there's a rhythm, there's a Rolodex of plays. When you're into week one, guys are doing it for the first time. And so that's very, very different. But you also got to find plays that work against what you're going up against. So again, that's what we're looking for here. And those are all the decisions that are being made and have been made. I feel good about the game plan in all 3 phases and got to go put it on the field now.
You lean back on that game against Notre Dame where you guys jumped right in a few years ago at all about how this might play out?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I mean, we look at the practice schedules more than anything to figure out how do we ramp ourselves up for a game like this in week one, different than maybe in the last couple of years.
Joe Reedy, Associated Press.
Ryan, in regards to scouting Texas, how much do you lean or look at that film from 8 months ago as far as maybe tendencies, knowing both of the rosters have changed a lot? And then, because Matt mentioned it briefly last week, How much does him facing Peyton and Eli maybe help him as far as scouting and getting a game plan together for Arch?
Well, I think you look at everything, for sure. Sometimes we look at too much. But ultimately, it comes down to what our guys can do, especially in week one. So we'll focus on that. Certainly I have the utmost respect for the Manning family, starting with Archie, the dad. I think he's just an unbelievable ambassador for the game. And Eli and Peyton, I can't say enough about who they are as, again, ambassadors of the game, gentlemen, and obviously great players. And so, and certainly Arch is a tremendous player as well. But really, that has nothing to do with this game and playing Texas. He's an excellent player. But those guys, they've stayed out of it for the most part because they want him to just write his own story. And I got a lot of respect for how they've handled that. And he's got a great future ahead of him, and he's a great player. So it's a great challenge for us. But again, this is more about our preparation and doing what we do well.
Dave Holmes, WSYX.
They really made an effort to take Jeremiah out of that Cotton Bowl last year. When a team does that, I mean, are you fine with that, given your other weapons? You're fine with him going 3 for 20 if he has a slow game? How do you look at the way they played him and how you want to unleash him this time?
Well, I think when you look back on that game, those penalties really hurt us. They set us way behind the sticks, and we have to play better football than that. They're a very disciplined team, and we have to do a better job than we did in that game. And so, we'll do everything we can to try to get, the guys in position to make plays, but ultimately, we have to have a balance. And if you have a balance, then you got a chance to attack teams. The goal here is not to get a certain player a certain amount of touches. It's to win the game. Now, in order to win the game, certain guys have to touch the ball. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's it. We have to win the game. And when Jeremiah's touching the ball, a lot of good things happen. So that's our job to make sure that that's happening. But at the same time, we got to make sure we do what we can to win the game and then go from there.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Kind of going off of what Cam asked, the idea of easing a quarterback into a start, is that something you subscribe to? Is that circumstantial with each quarterback in each situation? And I guess also this opponent and the nature of the football season, the way the format's set with the playoffs, does that change the way you might just throw a guy into the deep end and see how he reacts in a situation like this?
What do you mean ease in? You mean the game plan, or
the way you call the game and kind of just.
Again, it's number one goal, win the game, and then go from there. We know we have a long season ahead of us, and we know we're going to get great information coming out of this game, but the number one goal is to win the game, win the game, win the game. So what do we need to do to win the game? You start listing those things and then build from there based on what we've seen. You don't know which way the game's going to go. It could be close. We find ourselves out ahead. We find ourselves behind. We have to have a game plan to be able to respond to those things. So to say, we're going to play it close to the vest, no, we're not going to do that. To say we're going to be wide open, chucking it 60 times, no, we're not going to do that. It'll be somewhere in between based on what we're seeing, the success we're having, and then where we are in the game in terms of score.
Andy Anders, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, just wanted to get your thoughts. Do you know yet who's going to be in the box, who's going to be on the field on Saturday in terms of coaching?
Yeah, we put all that stuff together, and Brian and Matt both feel like they have a good plan. I won't get into exactly where everybody is because we have so much staff here. I'll forget some people, but no, I think we have a good plan. And what we did on Saturday was we went to the stadium and kind of went through a mock game. And in that mock game, we everything up until when you get into the stadium, we did. We were in the locker room. We came out. We did the pregame warm-ups. We did the quick cows. We went through the game, halftime, finished the game, went through the whole operation of TV timeouts. With the young team, I thought that was important. We actually we sang the Carmen, Ohio. We went into the locker room, sang the fight song, and then that was it. Just so that everybody knows this is what the expectation is. Talk through it, so that when they're doing it on Saturday, it's not for the first time. And a part of that was having guys in the box and the communication.
Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
You talked about the personality getting edgy, competitive.
Yeah.
Just curious, what role has Julian had in helping that develop, or has he been more of a follower or more of a leader, and what is your expectation of him going forward in that?
I think for every quarterback, they have to find their own voice and lead. And we talk about how do you lead. And you've heard me say this before. It's about who you are as a person, your character. I think he has high character. His connection, I think he connects well. He's found his voice, I believe, here in preseason. And then his competency is how well he's going to play in the game. And if you can do all of those things, you can lead. And, we've challenged him to have command of that huddle, have command of the game plan, and then make great decisions, and obviously play well on third down, red zone in 2 minutes. So now it's time to go put it on the field. But you're definitely seeing a lot of changes with him and a lot of growth.
Jake Trotter, ESPN.
Yeah, Ryan, was that the first time you had done a mock game all the way through the singing? And then what kind of challenge does Arch Manning pose on the field?
Yeah, we've done mock games before. That was probably the most detailed, just because of the the inexperience of our team. One, and then two, just what's coming with this first game. And yeah, then with Arch, athletic, big, strong arm, smart, quick release, accurate. All the above. I mean, he checks every box.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Coaches say with good reason that the games will generally be decided in the trenches. It's an interesting matchup on both sides. Your offensive line against a very good defensive line, and your inexperienced defensive line. They have inexperience on their offensive line. Just kind of what's your take on those matchups?
Well, we'll find out. Again, we're trying to project what those will look like, but we have we go off of what we see in practice every day, and guys are getting better. And today we'll have inside drill. Today we'll have some team and making sure we have our good percentage of good on good, because we know if we don't stop the run the ball, we're not going to win the game. So that's been something that we've been working on all preseason, and we'll see. But guys have been working at it really hard, and they know how important it is to win up front, and that's not only in the run game; it's also in protection.
James Watkins, Cleveland.com.
Back to the Corso's last show. So what do you, from your perspective, what has he meant to the sport?
Another great ambassador of the game, just somebody who's been positive and builds people up. And, he's somebody that I remember, just so many years of, putting on the mascot heads and just making, Saturdays so enjoyable for so many people. And not only as a coach, but as a broadcaster and what he's done, he's had a lot of impact on people. And, I just feel like when it's all said and done, and now that, his career, obviously coaching, but now as a broadcaster is ending, you look back on the impact that you made, and he certainly made a major impact on a lot of people. And I just remember all the different times, not only when, I've been the head coach at Ohio State, but before then of putting on the Brutus head and what came with that. And so for him to be here for his last, mascot game in his last year means a lot to all of us. And we thank him for everything he's done. He's made a lot of impact on a lot of people, and I appreciate him.
You mentioned having a young team a couple times, and I think this is right that there's no one left from the 21 class. You have no fifth-year guys who you recruited out of high school. There's only a handful of fourth-year guys still you recruit out of high school. And you have this robust third-year class that's given you a couple of captains. What do you make of that group? What kind of energy does that third-year player group bring to this team, and what do you think of their ability to kind of lead you guys? It just feels like you're going to be kind of junior driven this year.
Yeah. No, we're young. We've said that before. We are young, but we're also mature in certain areas. There's other areas we got to grow up. But when you see guys like Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles and Brandon Innes, Austin Saravelt, I mean, these are grown men, and they've been through it before. So they know what the standard is. They know what it's supposed to look like here. They know what it means to be a Buckeye. And so, they're the ones that are leading the way on this. But yeah, I think about, last year's team, they all decided to come back. And so when that happens, there's almost like a year and a half's worth of guys that when they walk out the door, there's a big hole that's left. And that's sort of natural in college football. And so there was a lot of, production to replace, but a lot of leadership to replace. And those guys understand that. And right from the jump, they've jumped into this thing, and now they have their own story to write. And that's what's exciting about college football is every year they get a different story, and here we go. This is going to be their story.
Can that refresh kind of be reinvigorating or invigorating for a team? I know all those guys who just went out were tremendous leaders and tremendous football players, but I would imagine the guys have been biding their time, have a hunger to them that might give this team a different kind of energy.
Well, it's their time now. Davis and Igbinosun, it's time now to be in the front row. KJ Jackson, it's time for him to be in the front row. Caden Curry, it's time for him to be in the front row. Guys now need to step up into those roles. That's why they came here, was to be in these moments. And so, they've already been part of really good teams, but not as leaders. There's something to be said for that.
Got time for just a few more. Stefan Kreisky, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, we've asked you a lot throughout this year about Julian's arm talent, kind of what he can do there.
But yesterday, Sark was talking about Julian and mentioned his athleticism, his mobility as well. Like, how much is that part of his game? And is there someone you've coached in the past who he reminds you of in terms of what he can do with his legs?
Yeah, he's got good quick, short area quickness. You've seen maybe in the game, a couple. He didn't have very many snaps last year, but you saw him move back there. You get a chance to see him change direction, and he's gotten stronger. You can see him. He's put on weight. He's put on strength, power. He's going to need that this season. In terms of somebody similar, I mean, I guess CJ was a little bit bigger, but CJ's got good movement. Yeah, I probably him, I guess. But he's quick. He's got good short area quickness, and he can move well in the pocket. And like you've seen, he gets the ball out of his hand quickly and makes quick decisions. And so, all positives.
Tim May.
Thanks, Jerry. Going into this game, starter, you were once a first-time starter. I know I'll ask you about that a lot, but what did you tell yourself before that first start that settled you down? Or did you run out there without your mouthpiece or something missing? And did you remember the play call? I mean, what are all those things, and what will you convey to Julian most of all before he takes the field?
Well, I think the first thing is you can't have expectations. And I think I probably, wasn't good in that area. Because, I was like, all right, I'm going to go throw 4 touchdowns and blow this thing out. And the minute something didn't go well, you can feel yourself, all right, I'm not fulfilling the expectation of what I thought going into it. And what you can't do in week 1 is have these crazy expectations other than win the game. Take care of the ball, win the game. If you need to throw it away, throw it away. Don't worry about anything else other than win the game. Win the game is going to be a heck of a night. So that's the most important thing, and that's the job of the quarterback. So that'll be my message to him. And then ultimately, you got to go trust your training. You can't play it close. When it's time to let it rip, you got to let this thing rip, and you'll know when it's right.
When you look back at y'all's last meeting, the Travion Henderson play before halftime, the screen that went all the way, the Jack Sawyer, those were 2 of your touchdowns. The Jack Sawyer. How much is it going into a game like this, even though you've game planned? Somebody's got to make a play, almost in these kind of matchups, right? I mean,
Have to.
How do you as a coach settle with that?
Yeah, no, I mean, these guys, I think they know that, but I'll remind them, make sure they know they got to make plays. Yeah, that's part of the job. It's going to come down to that. I mean, no, you're right. I mean, when you're in these big time matchups, like you said, guys got to perform. They got to step up, and that's been one of the challenges for the guys who are now seniors and juniors is that now you need to step up and take on that role. You need to produce. You need to make the plays. Knowing that you're not just going to go out there and every play that you have a perception that you're going to make, like I'm going to come with 4 sacks and everything like that. How about just going as hard as you possibly can and trust your training, and good things are going to happen, man, if you play really hard and you play really tough. And ultimately, everyone has to do their job. And speaking of that, we need everyone to do their job on Saturday, and that includes the fans. I mentioned this before. I know it's a noon game, but we need everybody in that stadium early. We need them loud. You think back on, the Indiana game when Indiana had to go to a silent cadence and they couldn't clap anymore. That was a huge deal for our defense. And it's going to be the same way on Saturday if the fans are in there early and they're loud when they have the ball. Not when we have the ball. When we have the ball, they can be quiet. But when they have the ball, we need them as loud as they possibly can to make this the most hostile environment in the country. And we all know it is. So we need everyone to do their job.
Fans are going to get Buckeye leaves when they're loud, too. Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
To revisit Arch, did you ever interact with him as a recruit, or were you involved with him on the recruiting field? What do you remember about?
Yeah, very little. Very little. I think they had their mind set up that they wanted to play, down south, and we a little bit here and there for sure with his dad Cooper, but not a whole bunch. He kind of had his mind set, but yeah, heck of a player.
And finally, Doug Lesmerises.
Ryan, your running back room last year obviously was so good. Just the progress of this running back group through this entire offseason, what have you thought of it? How do you feel about where it is right now?
I think we've built depth. I think we need to go play and find out where we're at, but I think that Locke has built depth there, and guys are running hard. Protection, as you know, is important. Ball security is utmost importance in this game. And we'll find out coming out of the game. But we've seen a lot of progress in those areas. James and CJ, Bo has stepped up. And so we feel like those 3 going into the game could play for us. Isaiah West is coming off of an injury, but he's really popped for us. And so we think that, down the road he can play, probably not in his first game, but But you know, it's been a while since we had 4 or 5 backs like that we can put in a game and feel good about. So, but ultimately, it's going to be how they perform, and excited to see them play.
And just to double check, I think when you were asked about where Brian's going to be on Saturday, I don't think you actually said, was that
He'll
by
be in the
accident?
box. He'll be in the box.
He'll be in the box. Okay. Thank you very much.
You got it. No problem.
Coach, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
guys. Thanks.